एक लड़का और एक लड़की मिले, प्यार हुआ, शादी हुई. फ़र्क ये था, they were from different religions. Our speaker Priya Ramani started the India Love Project about two and a little above 2 years ago. This was the trigger point. An ad from the Tanishq brand depicting a marital union between two people from different religions. The ad had to be withdrawn, and love jihad became immortalized. Though there is no study which says, but it's a possibility that about less than 2% of the people marry out of their religion. And there are some love lessons which have been learned from that. Let's hear about these lessons from Priya in this stage talk titled Love Lessons from an Instagram Project. Welcome, Priya.
रिश्ते हैं कुछ नए नए, धागे हैं ये कच्चे पक्के, अपनेपन से इन्हें सहलाएंगे, प्यार पिरोते जाएंगे, एक से दूजा सिरा जोड़ लेंगे, एक बंधन बुनते जाएंगे.
माँ, ये रस्म तो आपके घर पे होती भी नहीं है ना?
पर बिटिया को खुश रखने की रस्म तो हर घर में होती है ना. एक जो हुए हम तो क्या ना कर जाएंगे. एकत्वम by Tanishq.
Now, what's controversial about this ad, you might wonder? It promotes interfaith love. It shows us how families can put aside their differences and come together. It shows our the oneness of India. And it shows our shared humanity and history. But in today's India, that's precisely the problem. The jewelry company got so scared of the backlash and the intimidation and attacks against its minority community employees that they withdrew the ad in 4 days. My husband Samar Halankar, our close friend Nilofer Venkatraman and I were aghast at the bullying that forced the company to backtrack. We had for many years been planning a safe space for such couples who wanted to love, cohabit, or marry outside the rigid Indian rules of caste, religion, gender, age, and all perfectly constitutional-minded. But everyone knows how difficult it is to convince Indian parents to allow them to marry a person of their choice. I don't know how many of you married outside your caste. We had ambitious, next slide please. We had ambitious plans for a website that would offer legal and counseling help, tell lovely long narratives of these couples with lots of photos. We planned a helpline, a section highlighting our history of syncretism. But we never had the money or the resources to build this dream project. But when the jewelry ad was withdrawn, we decided we couldn't wait for a website. We applied a strategy perfected by millennials and Generation Z. We used Instagram. India Love Project was born on 28th October 2020, around 2 weeks after the jewelry ad was withdrawn. When we started, it seemed like every family had such stories. And many people dug out stories from their memory chest for us. We found ourselves wrapped in a warm, cozy blanket of interfaith, intercaste, and LGBTQ love. We struggled to manage the amount of stories we got. We were interviewed by publications across the world. Good news as resistance, we found, is an unbeatable idea. The rest we just sort of decided we'll figure out along the way. Next slide, please. Exactly 1 month after we launched India Love Project, UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath criminalized interreligious marriages using the conspiracy theory of love jihad. UP was the first of many states to go down this road. I got this definition of love jihad from a booklet produced by an extremist group. An Islamic campaign to deceive Hindu women into love, to compel them to accept Islam, and later use them as instruments for bearing Muslim offspring. Next slide, please. So essentially, deception, conversion, procreation. Women, of course, don't have any agency. We have no ability to choose, think, or look out for ourselves. We must be protected and saved by the patriarchy at all times. Other fantastical reasons cited for why Hindu women were ensnared by Muslim men, for Islamic terror groups, sex trafficking, and according to WhatsApp geography teachers, to change India's demography. These geography teachers theorized that by 2035, India would be a majority Muslim nation and Hindus would be under attack. These theories basically have allowed a movement targeting interfaith love, and one that is fueled and based on the foundation of only irrational hatred. Next slide, please. Cartoonists, of course, had a field day. See, highlighting the absurdity of the conspiracy theory. You can see as one inspired cartoonist illustrated, even the city's potholes are because of love jihad. Despite the government stating in Parliament in 2020 that love jihad is not a legally recognized term and it does not exist, it has been weaponized and normalized to the point that people believe it's a legitimate national concern. One chief minister said in 2020 that those plotting love jihad will be destroyed. This so-called theory of love jihad has been lurking for many years in the fringes. In fact, it originated in our very own South India in 2009. But it was mainstreamed and criminalized by Adityanath's law, which created new legal hurdles for a kind of marriage that was already difficult at the cultural and community level. Next slide, please. UP's law, called the Prohibition of Unlawful Conversion of Religious Act 2020, supposedly prevents forceful conversion of religion for marriage. But essentially, it equates any conversion at marriage where a partner may want to change his or her faith as being forcefully converted. Next slide, please. My favorite cartoon about love jihad is the one that answers the question, what is love jihad, most plainly and directly. But how does this hateful conspiracy play out in real life? Next slide, please. Now you can just, after every few sentences, keep changing. Athira and Chameen met through common friends 16 years ago. What drew them together? A sense of peace and a feeling of being understood whenever they spend time together. They say they're united by mutual respect, the space they give each other, and their conversations that they have with each other. Like any happy couple, they talk about their friends, their families, stock markets, they share gossip. Their parents actually agreed to the match, and they even hit it off with each other. Though they were worried about LKK, Log Kya Kahenge. The couple decided to get married in 2019 under the Special Marriage Act, so they submitted their application. Now, SMA applications are posted on the notice board of the registrar's office. And anyone who has a problem with the union can state their objection for 30 days. Some states like Kerala, where Athira and Chameen were, even post these notices online. So the officer told them this is done to prevent fraudulent marriages. Athira asked the officer why this was not allowed, why this is not done in the Hindu Marriage Act or during the Muslim Marriage Act Fraud can happen to anyone, right? The official had no answer. In fact, I think we need a clause like this for women who marry NRIs and go abroad overnight only to find out they've been tricked. Last year, one man was arrested after it came to light that he had posed as an NRI living in Canada and proposed marriage to 300 women. Anyway, Athira and Shameen were shocked to find that their application, along with hundreds of others, circulated on social media with all their private details. A week later, Athira's mum sent her a WhatsApp forward, which had PDFs of 120 SMA applications, including hers. And there was a para on how love jihad was back in Kerala and how naive sisters were being trapped by Muslim men. It urged people to visit the homes of these girls and inform their parents that their daughters would be taken to Syria for the flesh trade and that they needed to stop the marriage immediately. When Athira wrote about this experience, many couples wrote back to her saying they had suffered worse. She got rape threats. Couples said they had faced death threats. Together, they managed to convince the Kerala government that it shouldn't be online at least. Then Athira filed a writ petition in the Supreme Court to re-examine this archaic clause in the Special Marriages Act. She waited 2 years before the Supreme Court heard her case recently, and they dismissed it because they said she was no longer an aggrieved party, because by then she was already married. Which brings us to lesson 2. The fears of interfaith couples are very real. I'll tell you another story. A woman, let's just call her P, a Hindu woman, wrote into India Love Project, and she said that she had finally given up on her interfaith relationship to S, a Muslim, after 10 years. They had even lived together for a while, and here's what she said about that time when they lived together. I don't know how marriage works, but if this is how it works, we're good at it. I feel like if we're together, we can fight anything. Then in 2018, she told her parents about her lover. After that, she went through hell. There were fights about love jihad, propagated by these people, declarations of self-harm, we will kill ourselves, and other Bollywood-style drama. Threats from her father saying, na main karvaunga, na main hone dunga. Nor will I agree to this match, and nor will I let it happen. Implying that he could do anything to stop this match. Her mother told P the family's izzat depends on her. It sounds like such a cliche in 2022, doesn't it? She emphasized how P's independence had hurt her parents and displayed zero empathy for the toll this fight had taken on her daughter's mental health. Her younger brother, who was once a supporter, told her to compromise and end the conflict. Her parents wanted her to resign from her job, return to the small town home she had left 13 years ago, and marry a man of their choice. Of course, her father regretted educating her and allowing her to work. Her family's opposition was so strong, S got scared that her family would harm him and his family if they did have a court marriage. Eventually, they couldn't get past P's family's opposition. They separated a year ago, and what P told me was that I wish that my father had gotten to know S, because they were so alike in so many reasons, in so many ways. They would have he would have really loved him, and they would have really got along well. Lesson number 3. The biggest barrier couples face is their friendly neighborhood parents. That's why someone who works in the field, who helps couples marry, who does the actual work, we just do storytelling, but there are organizations that have safe houses, etc., for such couples. He told me that all the government has to do is to introduce a clause in the law saying that interfaith and intercaste couples who want to get married need written permission from their parents. When this happens, remember you heard it here first. I know this talk has begun on a dark note, But let me tell you that India Love Project is a very happy space. Next slide, please. That's my co-founder Nilofer Venkatraman many years ago. We launched with co-founder Nilofer Venkatraman's parents' story, the black and white image. I love the names of the offspring of interfaith couples, but more on that later. I'm like a vulture when it comes to meeting people, and I like swooping down on clues hidden in their names. And I go up to relative strangers and I ask them, are your parents interfaith? Anyway, so Nilofer's mother, Parsi, left home to marry a Tamilian Hindu man. After they were married, her parents used to encourage interfaith couples who faced opposition and like help them out. And they've even organized a few weddings in their house. Nilofer remembers a school teacher calling her a mongrel. Nilofer and her husband Andre are an interfaith couple themselves. We began ILP with stories of friends and family because we launched immediately, and we told ourselves that we would figure it out as it unfolded. Where do these polarized groups even meet in a country where most prefer to hang out with their own caste, religion, and socio-economic ghettos? Next. The simple answer is everywhere. Usually at some of the places listed here, but also as lab partners or across the dissection table in medical college, as opponents on a table tennis, in a table tennis match. They may sign up for the same trek or even meet by chance on a walk when his dog jumps on her. These are all real stories, by the way. They could have met as rival radio jockeys. In one case, the next one please, a Muslim woman and a Hindu man met when he dialed a wrong number. She said, Amina told us, we met on a wrong call in 2005 and stayed in touch till 2007 when I decided to move to Bangalore for higher studies. That's when we met for the first time after 3 years of talking over the phone. And the next couple met because of a wrong text. So Suleiman, in the 2001, before smartphones, he texted Aurelia, who was a stranger, asking her why she hadn't been in touch and how she was doing. Suleiman actually thought he was texting his friend Pallavi. And once they figured out the misunderstanding, they started chatting, and the rest, as they say, is history. Of course, many couples are deterred. It's only a few who can fall in love and push through the opposition to build a life together. Despite the fact that the Supreme Court and the High Courts across our country repeatedly pass judgments against honor crimes and speak up about the right of all adults to choose their own partners, relatives, caste groups, khap panchayats continue to use brutal means to prevent young people from selecting their own life partners. I recently met this activist Kathir who works on the honor crimes, in the area of honor crimes, and he told me that he once asked a father who was imprisoned for conspiring to murder his daughter. I mean, he did plan her murder. He asked him, is your caste more important than your daughter? And the father replied, it is more important than God. Which brings us to the now very thorny issue of conversion, which has become the dreaded C word. As many interfaith couples will tell you, in India it's easy for one partner to convert rather than to get married under the Special Marriage Act and face the kind of hate that Athira and Shamim had to deal with. SMA notices, details of names, address, phone numbers. They've always been used by fundamentalists to threaten and intimidate couples and their families. Policemen escorted by vigilantes come knocking at your door. They harass you and your family about an impending wedding. This has often happened. Nowadays, even a wedding card shared on social media can assure that the function gets cancelled, like this one did. The family's names are on the cards. It's quite clear that nobody had any objections to the function, but still, the social media warriors decided that this was inappropriate. In 2021, India's Supreme Court said, it is high time society learned to accept intercaste and interreligious marriages. But the biggest love jihad travesty in recent times has been the abandoning of the rule of law by Indian courts in what came to be known as the Hadiya case. Patriarchy, the police, the courts, even the educational institution where Hadiya studied came together to ensure that a young woman had to fight for years to uphold her right to change her religion and marry a person of her choice. One court even annulled her marriage. She was kept apart from her husband for months, not allowed to meet anyone except her parents, until finally the Supreme Court was forced to point out that a marriage between two consenting adults cannot be annulled. When we began India Love Project, we used to carry conversion stories too. But the toxic response was too much to handle. Eventually, we took a decision to stay away from conversion, even though all the cases that came to us were all voluntary. The so-called love jihad laws are against many of our constitutional rights. Choice, privacy, dignity, freedom of religion. Some have said these laws remind them of Nazi Germany's Nuremberg laws. Next one, please. That forbade marriage or sexual relations between Jews and Germans. UP's law was introduced days after the court of that state said that the right to choose a partner or live with a person of one's choice is part of a citizen's fundamental right to life and liberty. In this bleak landscape, India Love Project ended up being a shining ray of hope. And it turns out that that's exactly what many lovers wanted. 2 years and 441 stories later, we have a wonderfully supportive community of around 60,000 followers. If anyone has a query about a specific wedding ceremony between someone, some community and another, and I ask people on the forum, I'm flooded with replies. My favorite stories are the intergenerational ones, like this one. On one side is director Kabir Khan and Mini Mathur, and on the other is his parents, Leela Narayan Rao and Rashiduddin Khan. We're still waiting for that love story of the most famous Indian interfaith mascot of them all, Shah Rukh Khan. In these past 2 years, so many interfaith couples who haven't formalized their relationships yet have written to say that they find ILP deeply inspiring. They also look to us for help, and so soon after we launched, we began connecting couples to counselors and lawyers. Things have gotten harder in the 2 years since we started this project. Couples are sometimes scared to share their stories because we ask for pictures and full names. We've also had a couple of stories withdrawn after they were submitted, invariably because they feared a backlash. This especially happens in intercaste love stories where one partner is Dalit. Some have criticized us for showing love stories of mostly privileged people. But the reality is that it is these privileged couples who are on a much safer footing. And hence, to start with, we have started with them. We post twice a week these days, but it's still a safe space for people who do not believe love should be barred by faith, caste, and race. People still fill our inbox with requests for help and with hope. I'll share some examples of the messages we get. My partner and I face a lot of hostility due to our interfaith backgrounds. And I cannot stress enough how relevant and healing your page is. Each story brings a smile and tears. Keep doing the good work. Or here's another one. I too have a similar story. My husband and I are from different faiths, and we were now married for 16 years with 2 kids. I'm a Parsi married to a Muslim boy after a 5-year typical Bollywood-style romance. It's our 5th wedding anniversary today. Would love to share our story. My parents had an interfaith marriage, and I can relate to most of the stories here. My dad passed away a couple of years back, and we still celebrate his and her festivals. Our house is as joyful on Christmas as it is on Diwali. So I'm glad there's someone telling these stories. It comforts me. You guys restore my faith in love. I wish to marry my boyfriend soon one day. You guys are total motivation. Can I send you the story of my grandparents? My grandfather, a 23-year-old Khoja Muslim boy, the only child of a surgeon, married my grandmother, a Hindu widow, 10 years his senior. They had an incredible life together. What we had hoped for was realized. In a country increasingly divided along all kinds of lines, our forum provided a tiny unifying opportunity. It became a space for those who had led the way to tell others that non-mainstream relationships are not illegitimate or wrong, that many Indians have broken social barriers in love for generations. This is particularly relevant today because young people are spread out across the country in search of education and jobs, and they're increasingly coming into contact with and meeting and mingling and falling in love with people from different cultures, faiths, and regions. In the multicultural environments in which they work, in which they study, making friends or having relationships with those from dissimilar backgrounds may seem normal, but when it comes to sanctifying such ties as marriage, all hell can break loose. Many of them land up in our inbox seeking help with mental trauma, family, legal issues. The best part about the format of ILP in a country that is against love and lovers is that nobody has any grounds to object. People are sharing their own love stories in their own words. Next slide, please. One of my favorite stories is the story of Lata Singh, who eloped with her different caste lover more than 20 years ago. Her family filed a case of kidnapping, and she fought a court battle for 7 years. She won. The court said that intercaste marriages were in the national interest and that adult Indians could marry whoever they wanted. Next slide, please. Another favorite story is of Rose Ansar, a Christian woman from the southern state of Kerala. She sent me her Christian Muslim story about how they met on Facebook and how they both like to travel and both like to cook for each other. When I pushed her for more details, she added some, but I kept feeling like something was missing. Eventually, I sent her the final story, at which point she asked me, "Do you think I should mention that I'm a trans woman?" The love story that then emerged was a wonderful one of an Indian Muslim man from a conservative family who used his savings to help his lover transition and who held her hand through multiple surgeries as they fell deeply in love. So how it works in India Love Project is that anyone can send us a story. We have a Google form attached in the bio of our page, and you have to submit your story and 3 photographs with captions. We edit the story to size, ask you a few more questions if we think something's missing, and then we send you back your final story before publishing it. Once you clear it, we publish it. We featured around 441 couples so far. Unsurprisingly, women are the bigger chroniclers of their love stories. Most of our couples are interfaith, and these include interracial couples. Hindu woman, Muslim man, and Muslim woman, Hindu man are neck and neck at roughly 15% each. And by the way, we've been accused of being anti-Hindu and pro-RSS. Every time a Hindu man, Muslim woman story comes, this is an RSS page. And every time it's a Hindu woman, Muslim man story, this is love jihad. Nearly 8% of our love stories are intercaste. And by this, I don't mean Chetan Bhagat style intercaste, North meets South. It's usually one of the partners is Dalit. And 7% of them are LGBTQAI. Some of these are also interfaith. The balance is a mix of Parsis, Sikhs, Jains, etc. None of these matches are forced. Next slide, please. One clear strategy seen many of our couples employ to convince their parents is to find an ally within their family, whether it's their sibling or their kind grandmother. You know, they all say that it helps their case to push their case with the rest of the family. Among couples where only one partner's family approved, we found that twice as many men's families approved over women's families. What can we deduce from this? Could it be that families are twice as likely to approve what their sons want than what their daughters want? Or is it that it's about the idea of family honor being connected to controlling their daughters' lives and choices? And therefore, there is more opposition and shame when it comes to accepting a woman's non-conforming choices. About a quarter of our couples went ahead despite no approval from their parents. But it's a very hard barrier to cross. One theme I want to explore further in the coming months, is the lessons our couples can learn from the queer community about coming out to their families and battling the lack of acceptance from those closest to them. Here's a fun statistic for you. 15% of our couples said that they had different food habits. And this becomes an important fun element as they start living together. Next slide, please. Like Nisar and Vaishali's Ganesh idol that gets offerings of modak and sheer korma. They began the tradition when their daughter was 5 years old, and then it became an occasion where both their families came together. Incidentally, when their daughter was born, both families wanted a Hindu/Muslim name, respectively. Nisar and Vaishali called her Isha. They got IS from Nisar and HA from Vaishali. The Hindu side was happy. It's a Hindu name, they said. But the Muslim side was very upset. Why Isha? Then Nisar convinced them that Isha is actually the last namaz of the day, the night prayer. This way, both sides were satisfied. And they didn't have to follow any rituals to select a name. The archives of India Love Project hold many such what's in a name stories. Take the next one, for example, Mandira and Avinash, Celestian. Mandira and Avinash wrote that they had named their 3-year-old daughter Noor Kala Celestine, the toddler edit of Amar Akbar Anthony. We chuckle at how, in the future, anyone who tries to size her up based on her name is going to be in a tizzy. In a society when the name surname is often used as a proxy for caste or religion, we want to keep people guessing as to who or what she is and in what proportion, they said. Similarly, I recently met Tarang Asha Habib. When Tarang Asha Habib went to the RTO to complete her paperwork for a driving license, the official there wanted to know why she hadn't filled in the space for a last name. She said, I don't have one. What do you mean you don't have one? What is your name? Tarang explained that Asha, her mother, and Habib, her father, had called her Tarang Asha Habib. You can't use your mother's name, he said. My mother is important to me, so I use her name, Tarang replied. Many people give their children names from the heart, she explained to the official. Eventually, he was forced to give her the license. But Tarang, who also has a gender-neutral name, says she loves to confuse people and see how they perceive her. Next slide, please. There's another reason why I think people love India Love Project. We focus on those Indians who made it past the barriers and who are together despite everything else that's going on in India today. We give these couples hope. We often ask couples who've gotten past these barriers what advice they would give to others who are in the same place that they were a few years ago. And these are some of the things they've said. And actually, it's good advice for any marriage, really, or any committed relationship. Dissolve egos, have faith in your love, accept, adopt, adapt to each other's rituals and faiths while keeping your identity within your inner space. Be financially independent before you announce you plan to get married. As a Maharashtrian activist I met recently put it, Prem bhakri det nahi. Love doesn't pay the bills or feed you. Take protection if you need it. Don't marry secretly. Don't give up. Stand up for what you believe in. Everything else will eventually fall in place. And a piece of advice for families, nothing is bigger than the happiness of your child. Not from me, from a couple. And religion shouldn't be something for which you're willing to alienate or lose your child. I wish all Indian parents would learn this. Who can guess what is the question interfaith couples are most often asked? Married interfaith couples. Any guesses? Correct. What religion will your children follow? Everybody wants to know this. Here are some of the responses. Most of them say religion of humanity. Kids will figure it out. We let them decide for themselves when they grow up. We've raised them to respect and love everybody. One person said, my eldest believes God knows everything, since his mother keeps saying God knows. One of them said Calvinism with a dash of Hobbes. And when two daughters of an interfaith couple were asked, what do you follow? Their answer was always the same. To be honest, we follow love. And that's pretty much been the journey of India Love Project. Last year, after I won, I won a prolonged court battle myself. Bollywood director contacted me saying, we'd love to make your film into a story. Your story into a film. And I said, no, thank you, please. But why don't you check out India Love Project? And I forwarded him the link to my Instagram project. And now India Love Project will hopefully soon, we've already signed a contract. It will be, but you never know, things can go wrong. It is slotted to be a 6-part series on Amazon Prime. And it's being made by Dharma Productions. And they've chosen 6 directors, 6 stories, a sort of modern love format. And I hope that works out. We have many other plans. We want to do a book. We want to do, now we have some money to do our actual proper website too. And we want to do a lot more to build the community, and we want to have counselors and workshops and all the rest of it. Thank you very much. I don't know what questions you all could have after all this, but I have a question. Does anyone want to share any interfaith or intercaste or inter-anything stories? In your family, a friend you know, someone? Yes? No, their parents, their grandparents. Oh, great. How and where you met? How you fell in love?
Okay, I don't know if I'll be able to do justice to this, but we met 6 years back. I was in Bangalore, finished my master's, and he was still studying, finished his engineering. And I got my job, and that's how we parted our ways, falling in love. I was in Hyderabad, so I've been in Hyderabad for the past 7 years, where he has been living in Bangalore and Delhi, studying. So we have lived in distance relationship for 6 years, still loving each other all the more day by day. And we just got married last year during pandemic in July. And we have been married for 1.5 years now. It was a difficult journey, but
Tell us a bit about that difficulty.
Okay, so coming from a Catholic Christian family, my mom was a staunch Christian, and it was very difficult to convince her. However, my dad, he has traveled and explored the world, so he was very open-minded and helped me and my family to convince my mother. On the other hand, Punjabi families being liberal, they were quite fun-loving and accepting about me, which was my luck. But still, they were a little tiff about, after you're married, what religion will your child adhere to? Will he be a Christian or will he be Hindu? So those questions which we never thought about, falling in love and being in love, but these were the questions that our parents still kept worrying. And we decided on that, we'll just raise our kid the way we would love to, teach him both religion and let him decide when he is 18. Let him be baptized, let him be whatever, Hindu tradition, cultures. Let him follow, enjoy. He's lucky to have parents from two different faiths.
Exactly.
So let him have joy of two different worlds. And it is such a privilege now that, we celebrate Christmas together, both the families coming together. We celebrate Diwali together. So even I am feeling that I have got the opportunity to explore certain things which I wasn't able to, so will our kid.
Absolutely.
So yeah, this is my story. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Didn't have to do anything, and we, it worked out well.
Yeah.
And now about the child, we have
Yeah.
one son, and then he said, we both said, we teach him both things.
Exactly.
So he thought for himself, and he's okay. Now he's married, and he does. He's married to a Punjabi. But this girl was not very, religion-minded, but now she's getting it. So he's okay with it. So their children are asking him, the father, okay, why should we do that? We don't believe in this. So he said, no, you have to accept that because mama will feel hurt. You listen to them. Whatever she does, you do. You also, okay. Just to please mommy.
Right.
And then he's nothing, like he's not a Muslim, nor does he believe in, but he's inclined towards Muslim. He says whatever his reasoning is. But he said something on the puja and all that. Not too much, only for festivals.
How did you all meet?
Oh, नहीं, वो तो एक Hollywood की कहानी है on the hockey field.
Seriously, look at that. I've got to update my slide. Please tell us in 2 minutes about the hockey field.
Well, I was playing hockey for the state. This was in Bangalore.
Yeah.
And we had to practice, matches. We played matches. Sometimes we used to play matches with the school team and all that. And finally, it was at the end of the year, they used to have annual sports and all. So none of the schools was willing to give us the field. So my coach said, देखो आर्मी में ना वो playground है, ask them. So I rang up this, and the sports officer said, no, our officers have to play. We can't lend you the. So I went back to the coach. The coach said, नहीं, ऐसा बोलो, the girls team will play against the army officers team. उनका भी sports हो जाएगा, तुम्हारा भी practice हो जाएगा. So we went there. But that's where we met, and then actually.
So he was an army officer.
He's an army officer, and then I was a centre half, and he was a centre forward. And then जब tackle करने गए तो उन्होंने मेरी stick पे से लुढ़क गए. And then he ran, took my, in the confusion, he took my stick and ran. बस उसके बाद से चल पड़ा.
Oh my God, that's fabulous. I'm sure there are more stories lurking in this room. Sure. Huh? You don't use names. Okay, can we switch off the recording? Anyone else? Last one? No? Okay, thanks very much, guys.
I think a lot has to be done with regard to how parents perceive whether it's the happiness of the child, which is
Yeah.
important, or it is their ego. So once they let go of the ego and look at the broader picture, I think it's far more easier for the child to take the step forward. It's easier said than done, but then I think that's where, education and a lot more exposure to, a broader perspective.
But
That-
many parents do come around, actually.
They do come around.
Once they realize that their children are serious and that
Yes.
it doesn't, they're going to go ahead anyway.
Yes. I have a question. Do you see this more on the rise because of the digital social media, or Is it?
I mean, definitely that too. I mean, a lot of our couples have met online on, on all the different dating sites, on Facebook.
No, I mean the objection, not the meeting.
Oh, the objections, yeah. I mean, definitely. Definitely in recent times, and anyone who's in this field will tell you, the number of couples who are ready to get married and who are ready to face everything that needs to be faced before they get married and after their marriage have fallen, Even this organization called Dhanak of Humanity, which brings together couples and works with them and helps them get married basically. They say that the numbers of couples contacting us have gone down dramatically, which is so sad.
It's sad, but then probably it just saves them the heartbreak which might happen if they were there on the social media.
That's one way of looking at it.
Well, it's the happiness of the couple which I would probably think for. Priya, this has been a very engaging one.
Thank
and
you.
Nahid auntie, your story was the rock story of the day.
Seriously.
Thank you everyone for joining in.